live. So I guess the first few viewers will log in now. We'll give them a bit of time. This is usually what happens when you're trying to log in time, and then something goes wrong with the internet, or the link doesn't work, or typical. And Dimitri, how's Paris at the moment? The weather is nice. Are you enjoying life, or is it?
I'm always enjoying life. However, the weather is not the best, but it's autumn. And,
yeah.
My favorite season, actually.
Okay. But it depends really on the location. I live in the north of Germany, and autumn here is not the nicest time of the year. It has few nice days, but it's very rainy and very wet and cold and windy. Yeah. So I think we'll wait until 10:03. By then we will have a certain amount of viewers that have logged on, and we'll start. Until then we wait.
Okay, good luck, everyone. Good luck, Dimitri.
All right, okay.
Let's enjoy it.
Yeah, let's enjoy this webinar. So welcome to our Cytric Freenow webinar with our guest Ghassan Tefah, Partnerships and Strategic Alliances Director, Amadeus Cytric Solutions, and Dimitri Tsigalnitsky, General Manager for France Freenow. And I can see that we have more than 150 viewers logged on now. That's great. And with you together, we'll touch base on several subjects today. Most importantly, sustainability in the travel sector. And after we have touched base on all these subjects, we'll also have enough time after the webinar to have a Q&A session where Ghassan and Dimitri's expertise and experience will be able to answer most of your questions. Yeah, Dimitri, maybe we'll start with you. Do you want to give us an idea of your background?
Good morning, Ferdinand. Good morning, everyone. So I'm the General Manager of Freenow for France. And I have in my luggage actually 15 years of experience in the travel and tech industry across Europe. And for those of you that don't know Freenow, we are one of the main European mobility as a service providers. And we're enabling 40 million passengers to commute across a bit more than 170 cities right now in 10 countries across Europe. They can essentially go from point A to B by accessing in a few seconds hundreds of thousands of mobility providers, ranging from scooters, e-bikes, mopeds, car sharing, and of course, taxi and PHV, which is our core business.
Okay, thank you very much. Ghassan, may I ask you to give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Yes, of course. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Freenow, for this opportunity. My name is Ghassan Tefah. I'm a dual citizen French-Lebanese. I've been working in the travel and IT sector for almost all my professional life, with the last almost 12 years being with Amadeus. And most recently, I've moved into the Amadeus Cytric Solutions unit, which is a unit responsible for the booking and expense management tool for corporations, either directly or via TMC.
Right, super interesting. Let's stay with you, Ghassan. Would you like to give us a brief overview of Cytric Solutions and the top 3 of your mind? What's keeping you busy?
Sure, of course. So as I said earlier, Cytric is an integrated online booking and expense management solution that enables corporations either directly or via a travel management company to manage their complete travel program from booking to expense management and reimbursement. It's a tool that has been utilized significantly, especially in the last couple of years after COVID and during COVID and after COVID. As for the three hot topics that, I mean, this is a very common question. I wouldn't say there are only three, but the highest priority three topics would be sustainability. This is something that before COVID was a nice to have. And post-COVID, we see it much more be important at the corporate level. Corporations now and governments have a much stricter targets to meet. The date is approaching, so we are not we are seeing much more work done on that. And as many of our viewers know, there is no silver bullet, there is no one answer. In order for us to achieve the carbon neutral goal set by our governments, we need to all work strategically and collaboratively together. So that's one of the topics. The second topic would be the employee experience and engagement of the employee network, which is also sometimes called the social capital. This is especially post-COVID. We saw that how we have to abruptly move from, most of us working from office and traveling to working only from home. And then from the recovery period, we saw also a lot of, changes with employees, with the markets opening. So the employee and how easy for them to travel and meet, whether internally or externally, became something much more important for corporations. And therefore, the tools that power that travel needed also to take into that change of a model. For example, how do I book a remote business meeting? How do I book a virtual business meeting? How do I book a hybrid business meeting, and so on? And the last but not least is to automate many of the mundane and manual tasks that consume time and remove efficiency from the corporate traveler, whether it's expense management or reporting or taking pictures of receipt. We need to become a 21st century provider and to automate and give the user the same experience the users have from the vast majority of tools that they use in their daily life. So these are the top three that I would be mentioning now.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Ghassan. I particularly like the approach you have on sustainability and collaboration with your clients and partners. That's really a good way to create a community to work on this together. Dimitri, how about you? What is happening at Freenow, and what are your top three topics at the moment?
So we actually set our goals. I was saying that we're one of the main European players in terms of urban mobility in Europe. Our goal is to become the leading European mobility player in the next 2 years, so by end of 24. And in order to achieve our target, we focus on three pillars. The first one is to switch from a pure ride-hailing provider offering taxi and PHV across our market. So some of you might know our previous brands, such as Captain or Chauffeur Privé in France, MyTaxi in Germany, Halo in UK or Ireland. All of this is now called Freenow, and it was traditionally taxi and PHV. Now we want to move to a complete multi-mobility platform and offer the widest choice of urban transport to our users. And we believe, indeed, and we observe that the cities will increasingly promote free floating and sharing transport options against private cars. I'm living in Paris and I can observe this every day. It's more and more difficult to circulate with our own private car in Paris or even private scooter. And we have an explosion of these multi-mobility offers. So we believe that we're in a very strong position to consolidate such a fragmented offer to the benefit of the citizens. We have actually in the past 2 years integrated more than 10 mobility providers such as Steer, Dot, ShareNow, Cultra, which are now generating about 15% of our rides in France, as an example, and we plan to double this number in the next 2 years. So that's our first pillar, moving from ride-hailing to entire multimodal platform. Our second priority, it's completely in the context of this webinar, is actually to grow our B2B share, as this is a key segment for us. We can see that 50% of our rides are made for a business reason, during weekdays, during the peak business travel time. And our only 20% actually of our rides are managed under a travel policy or a corporate agreement. So there's a big space to structure this. And we actually saw a significant share loss since COVID, of course, due to home working and business travel, but it's very, very clearly growing back since September. And we really want to leverage this segment as it's the most appreciated by our driver partners. It's the most likely to use our services, multimodal and bundle services, and it's also the most likely to use our service cross-border in Europe. So a lot of interest to promote B2B. And the third priority is, as Ghassan mentioned, there's a very strong focus on CSR, of course. So we want to accelerate our CSR efforts. We have a net zero target by 2030 that we want to achieve and reduce our carbon emissions by 50% in the next 3 years. And this is important not only for our shareholders, which are BMW and Mercedes, but also our employees, our customers, and finally, the cities in which we operate. So to summarize, pure multimodal player, not only ride-hailing, but offer the, all the different mobility options. Our second priority is to continue to offer additional services to B2B and grow that share of B2B. And the third one is CSR.
Oh, super interesting. Thank you, Dimitri. You already mentioned it. Sustainability, CO2 emissions, net zero targets. The question is how? Like, how do we get there? And what strategies do companies have to reach their goals?
Yeah, so again, there's the rule of three. So we try to focus on three main initiatives to reduce our emissions. The first one, I mentioned it earlier, is the multimodal acceleration from ride-hailing towards micromobility. Actually, 40% of our rides are less than 3 kilometers. So they can easily be switched to more eco-friendly solutions rather than ordering a PHV or a cab. Of course, if it's raining, if you're free, if there are many reasons to pick up a taxi or PHV, but we know that there are also many trips that could be switched towards an e-bike, a moped, a scooter, or public transport in the cities where we offer such a transport. Mm. The second initiative is to support our driver base, or driver partners. We work with 250,000 drivers across Europe, 30,000 actually in France. And the idea is to help them to switch towards electric vehicle fleets. Thanks to financial support, for top drivers, we can offer funds. We can also put in place bonuses to help with the acquisition of electric vehicles. We also work on partnerships with car manufacturers to help, offering discounts to taxi drivers or PHV drivers. And we also support this conversion with partnerships with electric charging solutions, for which we offer discounts to our drivers, paying maybe 30% less on the kilowatt hour. So we work with the entire system. We actually also work with cities and government to provide subsidies to the drivers, but this is not entirely under our control. But for the rest, this is what we do as a second pillar towards our journey to be net zero. And the third major initiative is to continuously optimize our dispatch algorithms. So it's more on the tech side to help reduce our approach trips emissions in particular. And to give you some example here again, we're working on multimodal recommendation if the distance is too short, on putting options, on promotion of EV cars over thermic vehicles, or it sounds silly, but we have implemented recently the recognition of the taxi or the PHV driver direction when we send a ride, so we avoid that the driver has to make a long approach time to pick up the passenger. So this is the third pillar, essentially dispatch optimization.
Mm-hmm. I find it incredibly interesting. Super in-depth insights. Thank you for that, Dimitri. Ghassan, what has Cytric committed to in terms of sustainability, and how do you collaborate with your partners? How do you get there?
I would like to pick up on something that Dimitri just said, because this is very important for sustainability targets, not only for Cytric, but in general. in order for us as a race, to achieve carbon neutrality, there is, and we have to accept that there is an interdependency and codependency of what other players and other actors, my competitors, are doing. And this needs a change of mindset. It does, I mean, unlike many other orders or mandates that came from either governments or regulatory bodies, in order for us as companies, as corporations to achieve that, we have to work together with partners, with competitors, with clients, etc. And this is the first thing that we have to do. We have to change our mindset, and we have to be much more open and saying, okay, I might not have the full solution, but I need to partner because we all need to get from point A to point B. Okay, so that's in a way the first thing. We also need to start looking at the travel as a transversal. Okay, and looking at it from the full picture instead of looking at it as small components, because all in all, travel in general represents a very small percentage of CO2 emissions. So if we look at it only from what we do, then the push or the need for us to change is limited. However, when we look at it from a bigger picture, all in all, that's what will motivate us. Now, to move from theoretics to actual things on the ground, due to the demands of and requirements from our customers, and also the industry mandates and so on, we have done actual changes in our tools that would help them and us achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, 2030, whatever the date is finally agreed on. Number one, and maybe not most importantly, but is opening up the traveler to make green travel choices. This used to be 5 years ago, not even a nice to have. This was a feature that was switched on by very few clients. Now it's a must-have. Now every client of ours wants to know, whether it's an air or a hotel or even a car or a rental or a ride. They want to know what is it that they are doing, what's the CO2 emission that are being done. And connected to that is the displaying of the actual emissions, no matter what type of booking you're doing. Then the third component of that is allowing the user to actually search, okay, with the CO2 emissions incorporated as part of the search. Because then, as Dimitri said, if your ride is only 3 minutes away, and then maybe it's better to walk, or maybe it's better to take 2 trains in order to arrive. And this would then change actually the travel policy of the corporations once the user, once the data can be collected and shown in a manner that is multimodal. Two more things, the measuring and tracking of the sustainability data, because you have to remember, no matter what we do, very few companies will achieve on their own carbon neutrality. They will need to offset whatever they're doing extra by doing green projects, planting trees or funding dams and stuff like that. In order for them to know really what are they, what's the footprint, they need trusted data that can be used against governments, against projects, and so on. So Cytric has the ability to give that data related to the areas we could cover. And the final point is to optimize the end-to-end travel process, okay? Becoming paperless, becoming automated, reducing the amount of paper. We all remember a couple of years ago when, if you had, especially, the road warriors like myself, Dimitri, and most people on the call, when you did your expense report, you looked like somebody who's presenting the 9/11 commission, a stack of this big, with papers, and those papers are then thrown, not even kept. So for us, being paperless, whether it's the expense or the approval process, and all of that is something that we are strictly moving towards, because it is something we have to do.
Thank you, Ghassan. Very nice to see how far Cytric is going to make these changes with the partners and impactful changes, and how much effort you put into to get it all done. That's amazing. Talking about partners, you were saying partners. How would you describe the unique value of our partnership between Cytric and Freenow?
I mean, it is related also to several things that both Dimitri and I have said. We are very proud in partnering with the best of. You know, we consider ourselves a best of. And we look at Freenow from either their availability, their strategy, and most recently their also sustainability approach as being a best of company. So that is one of the pillars of who do we partner with, and why do we partner with some companies. Okay, and this is why Freenow is one of our earliest partners in something that actually now became the thing to do, which is our partnership with Freenow is the fact that Freenow has integrated into our API, e-receipt API. Okay, and they were one of the first doing it, maybe even pre-COVID. Okay, done from a pure, let's see where this takes us, and then realizing, oh my God, this is a step into the future. What does that mean concretely? It means that a traveler who's using Cytric expense, who also happens to take a Freenow car ride, whatever he or she takes, their expense report would automatically be created and sent to the platform, so that they just need to add it to the other expenses of that particular trip. This, as I said earlier, ticks the box of removing mundane tasks, removing paperwork, and is automating a service, and is also giving the user less time, more time to spend it on other important things. So this is an example of not only why do we partner, but how do we partner smartly with somebody that ticks the boxes for many of the targets we have in mind.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really smart solution and helps a lot of travelers. Dimitri, in the beginning, you mentioned in your top 3 hottest topics how to boost B2B, especially in France and also in Europe. How do you feel about being part of the Cytric expense tool, driving business rights, especially multimodality?
Of course, I feel great about it. Gassan was mentioning that the main prior for the business travelers, road warriors, but also people not necessarily doing long haul flights, is to look for efficiency, including seamless, paperless process for their trips. And because urban transport is actually one of the most frequent travel transactions, when we think about it, you will take maybe 2 plane segments to go from A to B, from Paris to New York, but then you will take a taxi to go to the airport, a taxi arriving there to your hotel, a taxi again, to your meeting point, or a PHV or a scooter. So there's a lot of transactions actually, and it often creates frustration on the employee side to make their expenses, as well as a lack of visibility on the travel manager side. As a matter of fact, because whereas there's a lot of transaction, it's also not the biggest spend compared to airlines or hotels. Most of the travel managers actually don't really manage that part of the business, and hence they don't have any visibility on the level of spend. I mentioned earlier, to illustrate this, that 50% of our rides are made for a business purpose, but only 20% are tracked by companies. As again, ground transport is not always prioritized. So this is the famous leakage, and that creates a lot of frustration on both sides. As Cytric is a major player in France, in Europe as well, but I'm talking here for my market, this partnership helps them to seamlessly capture their expenses, even if they are not managed, and that contributes fully to our goal of increasing corporate activity, our second pillar for the next 2 years, and improving the B2B users' experience. Something else also to consider is that whereas maybe that some of you might not be aware of Freenow, I'm pretty sure that most of your employees or people working for your companies will actually use us alongside Uber or maybe other options across Europe. And so they use us for their private usage, for their private life. and they will not understand why they will not be able to use such a tool also in a seamless manner on the corporate world. Famous Blazor frontier that is being fade away. So because of the Blazor usage and because of the leakage in general, Cytric really help us to capture this information and hence improving our B2B share.
And if I may add, Ferdinand, to this point, it's a very valid point that Dimitri said, because this is something that we feel from our discussions with travel managers as well, is that and of course not all by a long shot, but the vast majority of them still don't consider or actually have accepted the matter of fact that my users are going to use the Ubers, the Lyfts, etc. And this is something I cannot manage. While realistically, okay, they can if they looked at it more, and having the data, having the data of how many e-receipts, without even, let's say a corporation A doesn't have a contract with Freenow. Okay, but because they're using it as Dimitri said, from their pleasure business, because they use it in their personal life and they trust it and they use it in their professional life, it's generating data, which then we can go to them and tell them, listen, the move is not going to really impact anything. 40% of your travelers are already using this, and this would be an important point. And this is changing the conversation a little bit more, because of course, and this is where, I mean, Dimitri, maybe I'm talking on your behalf, this is when it goes from, a jungle out there to actually, you can control who your users use, you can say no to certain companies or certain rides, and etc. And this is where the conversation turns to our advantage from a travel manager's perspective.
Absolutely.
Maybe at this, sorry, didn't want to.
No, go on.
Okay. Yeah, maybe just on this point, I have a question that's maybe related from one of our viewers. Still ongoing problem, there are still no international standards of environmental saving parameters. Today, companies are lost in a jungle of different scales and offers by providers. Ghassan, I think that's, would you like to answer that question? Is that okay?
I mean, it's not really a question, it's a statement, which I totally agree with. And this is something, I mean, we are, however, it's changing. It's changing if you look into the last, initially everything was supposed to be coming from governments. Okay, and then having governments agreeing on something was very difficult. So now we see the private sector entering the conversation more, okay, and actually talking, at least unofficially, on how to standardize some issues. Now, are we going to reach a moment where possibly so? Okay, maybe closer to the date. Remember, the EU a couple of years ago tried to kind of force that carbon trading on the airlines, and it collapsed because then China threatened to do the same. So sometimes having a standard can be something that ruins what you're trying to do. So yes, there is no international standard. Maybe it will come, maybe not, but we're moving towards an area where maybe we don't need an international standard if we all adhere to these common goals.
I see also, Ferdinand, a question from Michael, wondering when Freenow will be launched in the Netherlands. So it's we are today, as I mentioned, in more than 10 countries actually in Europe. We just migrated this week Greece, which was under the brand Bit before. And Netherlands is, from a market perspective, and in particular Amsterdam, of course, is obviously our favorite next market to enter. Now the question is when, if and when, and I cannot answer here today because we have also lots to do in our existing markets, and we don't want to spread too thin either. But as we would like to open one new market next year, and Netherlands is most likely that one. So if we achieve to put sufficient effort, focus, investment into a new market, it will be most likely Netherlands, but otherwise we'll just stick on consolidating our existing markets.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
We will have even more because it's the background of our favorite competitors also in Europe. So we would love to go there.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. Yeah, maybe the audience already noticed that we seamlessly moved from the last question to a Q&A part already, and we've answered a few questions. There were also 2 questions already live, but also some pre-questions that we had when registering. And maybe there's a question for you, Ghassan. How to integrate Cytric without integrating the Amadeus GDS?
Okay, here's my chance to myth bust a little bit. Amadeus is no longer only a GDS, and we stopped being that in early 2000. Cytric is a completely independent tool, completely independent backend, for the good or the bad. I mean, both. So actually, Cytric is not connected to the Amadeus GDS. And as many of our viewers know, Cytric was, Cytric, we used to belong to IFEO, which is a company we acquired a couple of years ago, completely acquiring it around 2 years ago. And one of the reasons why I did that was to be, as a online booking tool and expense management tool, neutral from a GDS perspective. So whether it's Freenow content or our direct hotel VDAs or car rentals, these are all connected into Cytric via a direct connection, not related to the GDS. The GDS then becomes, just another pipe that feeds the Cytric solution, because again, Amadeus is the biggest GDS in the world, and why wouldn't I want to connect into that GDS? But it's very important to keep in mind that, number one, Amadeus is not a GDS only, and Cytric has multiple levels of connections. Amadeus GDS being one of them, Sabre, Travelport, and the rest, and many direct connects as well to various companies.
Okay, thank you for that. There was another questions beforehand. What are Freenow enabling in our solutions to allow travelers and program owners to engage with sustainability insights as dynamic levers of their travel policy?
So we work on a bunch of different initiatives. First of all, we were offsetting. It's a compensation is not what we would love to do, but we're already offsetting our own emissions. We're also providing carbon reports to our customers. We also help to set up travel policies to promote EV fleets or green fleets, let's say, towards against thermic vehicles, based on it can be based on employee role, it can be based on distance, it can be based on time of the day. The challenge being for that second pillar that whereas we're still onboarding many EV cars, actually we went from roughly, I think, less than 10% of our EV fleet to more than 20% in the last year or so. It's insufficient. It's still insufficient, and we see that whereas we put in place these travel policies with corporations, because we don't have enough cars, we have the biggest fleet, at least in Paris, Île-de-France, if I think about that region, but it's still insufficient. So the waiting times are too long, and we see that actually it's often conflicting with the need of efficiency from business travelers, but we can still work on it. We help to promote also our multimodal options, including e-bikes, scooters, mopeds, even though we still see quite a few buyers and travel managers not yet at ease with these different mobility options, whereas they are used by their travelers already. And and we help with educating, putting in place a couple of programs, incentive for the travelers. So that's the type of levers that we'll put in place.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you for that. There's another live question that fits here quite well, I think. How do you see increasing electricity prices impacting the shift from petrol, diesel powered by cars to EVs? Maybe Dimitri.
So before talking about actually electricity prices, we have the challenge of components. So the many drivers are today struggling. Most of the drivers, first of all, understand that it makes much more sense for them to move from a thermic vehicle to a EV vehicle, first of all, or hybrid. Because of the oil cost, yes, electricity is going up, but the oil went actually even faster, and it was fluctuating most. So they're scared about this. They know that it's better to migrate because it's more comfortable. And they know that it's better to migrate because most of the cities start to ban and exclude thermic or diesel cars from the cities. So they want to do it. Now, and also, by the way, they see that many platforms, such as Freenow, but also some of our competitors are doing this, they tend to incentivize and promote this kind of cars. The challenges that they face is not so much the price of the electricity. I was mentioning it earlier for all our drivers who actually offer 30% discount on charging solutions with 3 partnerships in place. So we really help to compensate this. But they struggle to acquire a car, especially at the moment. And most importantly, they struggle to find a place to charge their car. Not only geographically, they don't have enough charging solutions close to where they live, but also the charging solutions currently that they can find are not sufficiently powerful to help to charge a car in a minimum amount of time. So whereas they put 5 minutes to charge an oil car, they will take 6 to 8 hours for a low charging solution. So that's really where the struggle is. Sorry for the long answer, but I want to share all.
No, I think it was a really good answer. So thank you for that. Guest who posed that question, I think also a super insightful answer. Thank you for that. There's a question maybe for you, Ghassan. What do you think about the new way of air tickets payment that Germany would like to set for traveling? Is that something that you could answer? Or
here I would like to plead the Fifth Amendment because I'm not very well aware of. If somebody can explain to me what it means, maybe I can talk a little bit. But excuse my ignorance about that. I don't know.
Very specific question. Dear guest, we have your contact details. We will try to find out and answer the question then offline. That's not a problem at all. Maybe here's some more questions from the audience when they registered for Cytric. A very simple and technical question. Can Cytric be customized according to my company policy?
Yes, of course. That goes without saying. I mean, it's without doing that, what are we doing? No, definitely, it's customized with your travel policies. It's and whether it's also customized visually with. Not all companies operate the same way. Not all countries operate the same way. Actually, it took us some time to kind of enhance Cytric to take the needs and requirements of various countries, because we bought it as a German solution, built for German needs. Now it's a global solution. We recently announced Microsoft as a client globally. So of course, I mean, if we can't customize, we wouldn't have never signed Microsoft.
Right. Okay. There's another question for Cytric for you, Ghassan. Can you compare air and rail routes on Cytric?
Yeah. Yes. That is something that is comparable. I mean, you could compare them historically. This is not something new. However, what is new, and this is what we're working on, and this is what I mentioned earlier, is this multi-modal search, and not driven by price. Okay, and not or estimated arrival time, but driven actually by carbon emission. Okay, this is something that is not yet there. We're piloting with a couple of clients, but this is something that is going to see the light very soon. So comparing air and rail with the different how much, yes, that was always available. The next thing that we're doing is putting them in the same flow, in the same view. Okay, and actually having the filter process and the search process being also triggered by the not only arrival and trained company and etc., but also the offset.
Okay, great. Maybe last question for Cytric. How can I learn more about other partners connected to Cytric?
Of course, I mean, part of this maybe within the summary, we will share with you our link. We have a dedicated link for Cytric partners. That will allow you to go and see who do we partner with, what kind of partnerships do we have, and feel free then to contact us at partners.cytric@amadeus.com. I'm sure that, I mean, in this summary sheet that we are sending, Freenow will send, we will make sure that the website is available.
Yeah, I think there was one more question live. The CO2 emissions on train is not yet transferred for reporting functionality yet, right? I think you answered the question by saying that you're already piloting and that's more or less live. So that's hopefully answered the question.
It's also, by the way, it's also, we have to keep in mind that especially with the train, unlike the airline, there is no unique backend. So it might work in some areas because we have, we have a working relationship with the train provider who is actually working on stuff. So yeah, I mean, everybody who works in travel knows that the train is much more complex than air, and this might be one of the several drawbacks of having some information available with some, but not the others.
Okay, great. Great, there are no further questions from the audience or from the pre-registered questions. So I think we hope that we were able to answer all questions to the audience. I also hope that it was an insightful and interesting webinar for all the participants. I thought it was very interesting, very insightful. Although I work also in this industry, I learned a lot today. So thank you for that. I would then close the session and give everyone a few minutes back, and hope that we will have some positive feedback from the viewers. Of course, we will send out a final email to thank you for the participation, and also give you some final information, also answer the last question that was on Q&A, so that everyone can have that on paper and have it in hand or on slides, so you can work on that as well.
Thank you, Ferdinand and Ghassan, and everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.